Today is Thursday, April 25th, 2024, second half of the morning session, Lieutenant Natural Resources and Energy. We're continuing our discussion on housing. We're doing a concept paper that offered by one senator and using it not necessarily because we want to adopt it, but because it's helping us think through issues that are still under discussion. With that, I think we paused on page 44, section 33. We're on the air, thank you.
I'll take out page. So on page 44, section 33 has changed. Section 33 was the section that directed municipalities to take the Act 250 permit conditions and use them into their permits. That language has been removed. And just has the municipality enforcing the existing permits. This language is inaccurate, so it needs work.
Okay.
But the point was to remove the directive to move the permit conditions over.
Oh, okay, so the conditions,
Are not being moved to the municipal permit.
they are dissolved, they're what happens to conditions attached to the original activity permit.
There's no further information.
For their information.
There's some language here unclear.
So it's not like they're extinguished, they're just not addressed. If we were to do nothing, they would continue to apply to that project. Or we're leaving it up, we're creating a legal gap where someone might say, do these conditions of my activity permit still apply? I want to build an addition, do I need an amendment, or I'm just good to go?
Well, no, so, okay, it depends on what are you asking about? Are you asking about this proposed draft? Or are you asking about in general? So,
Sorry,
what are you asking me about?
I'm asking if, with, I know you're saying,
This is not a fully baked proposal, is what I'm saying.
and the intent of this is heading towards what, extinguishment of Act 250 conditions?
I'm not answering that. This is all that I have.
Okay,
This is all, the information was to strike that.
so noted, thank you.
Yes.
We've been calling it sometimes the baton pass. What happens when you're not part of a new designated area, you have a permit, you want to do more things, okay?
So next, there are changes in section 34, which is the tier 2 area report. So on page 45, it's adding to the report on tier 2 how to define transit routes and what the jurisdictional trigger for them should be, and recommend how to address permit conditions in existing Act 250 permits that become exempt in Act 250 from Act 250 jurisdiction. So that's the answer.
Okay. You wait.
The way I read D is I actually think I would be supportive of it, but it's contingent on the changes that are made, like it wouldn't be necessary if we didn't do the change in 33. Or that, or, yeah. I mean, yeah,
This is not a fully formulated document.
but
Sure.
these D and 3 are kind of meant to help alleviate if you were concerned about the change made in 33 in some way, like to soften it, is that kind of the point of it? I don't know, okay, never mind, I don't know.
One of the last changes we made on our draft was transit corridor language that Mr. Baker brought in. And so it's on a list for us to revisit because last weekend, the more I read it and thought about it, and then looked at urbanized areas, urban areas, transit routes. Well, like what class of roads constitute a transit, how do you define a transit? And then how it worked if suddenly you were no longer in active, subject to an active 50 review if you were within a quarter mile of such a road, so you have those half miles straight. Could be a great idea, you already have you're developing on those routes, why not have more housing built in? I don't know that the development is limited housing and I don't know, so we have more to learn about. But I'm glad the topics on the table. And, all right. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, just to say I would be, I think I'd be okay with that language.
Next change that we should be aware of.
So there aren't any other changes until page 14. So the rest of this is staying the same as from your bill.
Pardon?
The rest of it is the same.
Okay. The base, so one of the conversations we started to have, we come back on EJ was there were two issues, as I recall, one was the dates related to environmental justice, so this is in essence, this is the policy we wrote in 134, is that the bill number? 34, 54, thank you, sorry. And then, but I don't know that we had, and was on the discussion list, I don't know if we made any date changes, or just this new language, or just the same thing we had as well. I just hope we know.
I had not worked on any environmental justice language like this year. So I didn't know you even were contemplating this, but this is, and for the record, just so everyone knows, this is actually what's in sections 39 through whatever are not the most up-to-date requests from A&R, and so a subsequent version of this draft, should there be one, will reflect that. But there is a change to the dates under the environmental justice program that is currently in development and data.
So I'm, for the times, etc., I reached out to A&R and called several times in the last 5 days and inquired about EJ issues, you know. I also wrote to Miss Raimundi and we have CC, the vice chair, if not the whole committee, I can't remember it, and trying to limit the number of meetings so that, but anyway, so I would want to, as a committee, I know we expressed an interest in progressing it. I'm hoping that we get final language, basically sort of for us to review ASAP from AM.
But broadly, I think their interest is extending these dates roughly to what they are. This may not be the exact language in here.
Yeah, and I, you know, to me, when I heard that the timeline we passed back when we did that bill 3 years ago. Wasn't working out, then we extended timelines before. In part because we don't want to have people unable to meet timelines by making a bad. Yes, so I was flagging that for. Also of interest in the committee. Okay, so 40, so that's 40, 41. Well, if and 42 also is.
Yeah, so all the way, so 39 through 43 are all date changes related to the environmental justice chapter,
Okay,
extending 2 years.
we'll look at that as a bunch. Right, takes us to 44. So now, second, the other group. There's an interest in indirect discharges of Class A waters. Which is a topic we worked on. Can you say a little something about language? Okay. So I have seen, as part of me getting back to the secretary yesterday saying, has every change the agency is interested in seeing been communicated to this committee? Since we do things like indirect discharge, it's like S-146 by law. And so I want to verify that, that we have the most current information. So before we start digging into something, I don't want to spin our wheels on something that's not well crafted from at least the AR perspective. I don't necessarily know where language is coming from. So I wanted to vet it with ANR, vet it with our council, vet it with our community. And Mr. O'Grady has helped us on that section. Senator Watson?
I'll just express my worry that this is a big topic and don't know if we would be able to do due diligence anytime when we have this.
I don't remember how long S-146 was, but it's more than a paragraph. And I'm a little concerned about it. It's still in top of that whole bill. Probably have more nuance to it for a paragraph.
Okay, so be very brief about this. Just want to emphasize the point you're making, which is this is not S-146. This just removes the limitation for protection of Class A waters and does nothing of the things that we talked about to protect Class A waters. So this is just a tiny sliver of what the conversation was. And, you know, VNRC and I talked with CLF, we would vigorously just oppose lifting the only protection that we have for Class A waters and replacing it with nothing. And with regard to 146, it's just a lot's happened in the year. And if you get into it, I'm happy to come back with my colleagues and talk about things that we've learned, but this is not 146.
Okay, thank you for that. Senator White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that council can comment on this, so I guess I'll ask my question of you. I think my main confusion with this section is the relevance to housing. And or
You mean like
Bill?
a germaneness
Yeah.
question?
I'm, maybe there is an argument to be made, but I think I don't understand if this is a barrier for people building housing because of. And I haven't heard that reflected, that people would like to build. I mean, we've heard that people want to build housing and potentially they would want to do it nearby Class A water, but I haven't heard the argument that they haven't been able to properly discharge their sewage into a Class A water. And that's their barrier to housing,
Yeah, I think,
but maybe I just missed that point. But I would argue that I would really prefer us not to do something that seems so outside of the scope of the purpose of this bill. But maybe there is a case to be made that is relevant, and I just have.
and I asked a similar question myself,
Okay.
and I didn't get an answer, so.
Okay.
Okay, so just flag that, thank you. Where do we go with the next change?
The next change is on page 68. The rest of those sections have not been touched. They haven't been changed.
So this is the last,
I think there's two others. There's not much left.
okay,
So just add, so at the bottom of page 67 into 68, this is just adding, this is in the regional plan section. It's clarifying, the plan shall be considered unapproved and member municipalities shall lose any associated benefits related to rep designations such as Act 250 exceptions or infrastructure investments. Just adding those words.
so from such a, such as, but. With active 50 exemptions for state infrastructure investments also added.
No, just the words such as. Someone thought it would make it more clear.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Thank you.
But it doesn't have a. Like a policy necessarily.
So then,
This allows for other tests that are not explicitly stated.
Oh,
sure, but I think that was implicit anyway.
You're gonna say the Oxford funded to go.
yeah.
Why we have the ninth method.
Okay,
Next on page 98,
yay,
there's some additional clarifying language in the definition of infill. So infill means the use of vacant land or property for redevelopment of existing buildings within a built-up area for further construction or land development. Or the construction of new buildings on developed sites.
There's a sort of a backstory of that, it's just providing an example.
No. There's a request to add that language. I think that might be it,
So for,
and the effective dates have been changed, obviously, to reflect this bill.
so that phrase, 98 there, for the construction of new buildings on developed sites, you're planning that. I'm guessing that was always part of the way they were looked at. Yeah,
I would agree.
not just remodeling, it could be any kind of new construction, or even tearing down something, open these lights.
With hopefully something better.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for John Palmer? All right, so we have on our report voted out, could you please include for now, the list includes, we know we want to do accessory confirmed business. Well, I thought that's where we landed this morning. Do you have any second answer?
Seems to be a majority of who's gonna speak.
Yes. All right.
Well, this is gonna be an individual amendment, so you don't have to have your name on it.
So true. Sure. And speaking, thanks for that reminder. So my thought would be that we would, because we have a special bill, would be difficult vendors of kind of amendment. I would hope that what we would do would be enough staff and all of it would. But people can put in or out, you say, but it will be a single amendment.
When do you need to know?
Well, when we finish writing it, the group, then we'll, I think we all know. But you don't have to vote until we've assembled something, we say, okay, this is, we think we've done about the best we can.
Thank you. I'm looking at the rest of our list, wondering if we have an hour, so is the plan to continue on with these?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I can be real quick about some of these things.
Here's what I think about this.
Boom, 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 punch list.
Thank you, thank you, Jude, yeah.
well,
We know your construction based on your use of punch list.
I have a folder, this was folder that's been growing over the last couple of weeks.
Chairman, can we solicit comments from the involved people?
Sure, yeah, so far, I'm guessing people haven't been. Anyone's feeling shy, usually I remember to say it when someone's spoken, if there's anyone in the room, there's a topic going by of interest. And you wanna participate in the conversation. Please flag us down, thanks to someone's phone, the reminder. I'm sure we'll know. You have the list right there, you wanna help us mark it?
Yep, so number 2, the conservation districts. I believe the conservation districts gave us some language,
Yes.
and so. As a starting place, I would like to include their suggested language.
Have you reviewed their language?
I mean, not here.
They did send us an email, I don't know if it was language, it was like things they wanted to insert in different sections, them,
Right.
basically.
They wanted to insert themselves in a number of places in the bill, and I think you should be specific and let me know if you want them to be in every single section
Right.
requested.
That was the question I had, was that the request. Would have had, maybe would have broader implications than
Okay.
we might.
They're actually be added with other, because some of the places where no one else is listed specifically,
Oh, okay, so it's sort of like if we open that door and then a lot of other people may want to be.
or it's a little bit odd.
Okay,
So I think it would be helpful if you told me which places.
I guess I am most comfortable including the places where it's already a list. of people that are interested. Does that help narrow it or no? No, okay. Sorry, you had thoughts.
Yeah, but if that's your direction, I can.
They gave us a pretty like I just pulled it up, they gave us a pretty detailed list of things. My gut feeling is I'd like them to be a part of the stakeholder groups and the stakeholder working groups. Especially tier 3 rulemaking, but I do think if there's concerns, like they wanna be, it looks like it's just sections 39, 37. And then. Yeah, I guess I'd like them to participate in the tiers, but maybe that's the one that's most controversial for their participation, so. Don't know, I see our regional planning commission advocate behind us,
Yeah,
and I don't know if they would be able to weigh in on.
right, so I think one thing will be helpful, so are those, I don't have their memo right in my hand,
I can, if you wouldn't mind printing a copy, I can email it to you.
my punch list?
Yes, you,
Okay.
a new thing, I'll get an
Okay.
email to you if you would.
Okay, great.
so let's, I think. We are always, I'd say, inclined towards participation, but I don't think we wanna make them sort of. The odd race and out some of these things, so. I was, while we're getting information on exactly what sections, while we want to go next one. Step 3, ADUs, so now we really need the bill as we go.
Oh, Sure, jump to number 17, section 1.
Oh,
Yes, section 1, purpose revision entitled.
I have one very brief suggestion, which is that in the purpose, it's. Blah, 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 but at the very end it says, while supporting equitable access to infrastructure, I would add especially housing. No,
I mean, I don't love the word especially.
and housing. I was thinking of infrastructure as a umbrella, including, I did actually started with including housing, but I'm. Wanting to put more. Punch on it, but including housing is fine, if that is more appropriate.
I always advise against others.
Okay,
quotes.
So including makes it clear that housing is part of infrastructure, which I think. If you want housing to be included in infrastructure, I think that is a clarification. I don't know how especially would be interpreted. So just to remind you, this is a statutory purpose section that will be used in statutory interpretation in court. So I do think that phrase equitable access to infrastructure is a bit vague. And adding clarification to it would be helpful. I think you should be specific about what it is you're trying to do.
Right, I think some of it was just that. Because of the moment we're in, and people are interested in how we supporting housing connected with things. At this moment, people are most interested in it for anything it has to say about including housing. Which the idea of acknowledging that housing is part of what we're trying to develop well. Was. It's just not. It's kind of the elephant in the room, right now, I get why we have this purpose. I don't know the last time it was amended, but.
This is a new section. So this, and also to be specific, this is for Act 250 only.
Yeah.
It is not specifically related to the many other sections of the bill. This is an Act 250 purpose section.
So what I didn't realize, though you said that, was that there was no, I thought we were amending. That language. Not reading it from scratch. So for the time being, including. Thank you.
I don't have a suggestion as an title yet, but we were gonna jump to section 3 and 1.
Yeah, I figured title will stick on the other end. Upon that, just maybe known as. Alright, are we set to come back with conservation discussion yet? Um. Section. So, from our old section, I just flagged ADUs in section 3, that's something we were. You know, when I get out, you know, what note I had on it, I don't know if anyone has a note. There, section 3, I maybe was. Over to that.
I suggested that you clarified the exemption for ADU. I don't know if
Oh, perfect. Which is around the question of if you have built non-unit, now they add
Oh, yeah.
non-ADUs. Are you now in Act 250 because you crossed the line? Your ADUs account for the jurisdictional triggers. And I don't know. Other than raising that question, I don't recall anyone lobbying for a particular interpretation of that. But it's suggesting.
so. I'm not lobbying on policy, however,
Yeah.
I'm concerned that it is not clear.
Yeah.
And so that's in the exemption section. And that would be page 58 of the draft that you passed. So I don't know what you were just referring to. So I don't know what section 3. I don't know what that is, but. The language I was talking about was on page 58. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we have some draft language we should.
Sure, you have hard copies, or you have language to submit. Yeah, if you could, is it on this topic? Sure. So if you would send that to the. To council
Yeah.
and committee members, so
Yeah.
we'll all have a copy we can pick out, we can. I don't know that. Rather than stop and try to get hard copies now, how about if we, when I get, I'm gonna add. To look at. Your language on this topic. Yes. Yes, very often.
Make a suggestion.
Yes,
I'm happy to be wrong, because given that we have about 45 minutes,
yeah,
I'm wondering if there are some things, because if we just march through these, we may not get to important ones that are at the end. So I'm wondering if we want to be intentional about prioritize ones that we really want to get. If you prefer to continue to.
no, these were never prioritized, it was the order in which they were
They came.
added on and added to the list was a little bit screwed.
There's no sense, you know.
Can I make a suggestion? I would like to highlight number 16, the quadplex clarification. We had language, I believe, submitted by Zach Hale.
Yeah.
On that, so hopefully that's, at least we have. Something specific. And someone sent it to me. I don't know your topics. We'll dig it out.
The other one, I think that's one of the bigger. Things we added in terms of implications was the transit corridor language, that, you know, we added at the very end. And I do have some information on it. Including some maps back from probably based on when I inquired about like what does that entail? As written in the bill.
We been asked which of these do we think need attention or which of the ones that we might have a problem with?
These were all things that we said, we don't have time at the moment, put into that bill and vote it out when we did it. But we didn't want to lose track of them, and we hadn't decided, everything that was on there was still, in contention for being added to our version.
Well, if we can find the time, I'd like to look at amicus briefs. So why do you? Yeah, well, and parking.
Yeah. Because our kingdom parking, this should be an easy one, but we had a conversation, by the time we. Conversation, we sort of, I think someone changed their vote and it changed the committee position from. The language in the bill said, municipalities must allow, right? And we say, in the end, we said. That we were opposing that situation and maybe must do language may. If it's permissive, or we, I don't know if we do the section. It's only gonna be a may.
Yeah, I think that fundamental point, and I think was also raised by Mr. Brady for the Raleigh and Saving Town, is that they'll want to take the opportunity for towns to regulate tandem parking away, and I don't know what the right language would be. Maybe it is striking that section, maybe it's changing something to a may, but that is my goal, is to still allow them to have the ability to regulate it. I do have concerns with the parking space size change as well, although I don't think we ever got a full confirmation on the ADA language within that, and if it is. But I'm open to, if we're in like, heated negotiation, I'm open to not having as much of an issue then, I guess. But there are very large vehicles that towns should be able to make decisions about their parking spots on. Especially when it comes to us promoting density in downtowns, where there might be a business that has a larger vehicle fleet. And I think it's a fair request of the municipality to look at it, and while it can be used to limit housing in some communities, I heard a specific example provided to me by Senator Rob Hinsdale of St. Albans. City, I assume, I don't know city or town, specifically using it to potentially limit housing or units within housing. I do still think it's a tool that we should allow for municipalities to have in their toolbox. And to open a conversation about the type of public parking requirements or type of public parking opportunities they have versus what they're making a developer do. So.
Yeah, I think, I'm guessing. With some confidence, there must be like an architectural specification for what a standard parking spot size is,
And I think the language that they provided is that. I think that the language that we got is kind of the standard parking spot size, so I'm not disagreeing with that actually being like the correct parking spot size, but there are different factors that you might consider as a municipality around the size of parking spaces.
So for the time being,
That's
we want put this on, we had it down twice. One was for the size, the other was the may shall. Can you, Senator White, do you want to do some more work and bring it to the committee so we can
just
come up to speed? I mean, for me right now, it's kind of an awkward place not knowing enough to say anything that's not.
I would like us, if we can, I'm trying to find this down,
Yeah, where
page 98, beautiful.
Oh, I don't know. Of the page 98 of the draft 4.1 that this committee passed.
There it is. Oh, I'm on 244.
417.
I'm
Please.
So I apologize for this, item is not on the list, but I think of it in connection actually with the tandem parking. In terms of the So on page 97, limitations on municipal bylaws, it's, I'm not sure how to.
Yes, this is the hotel.
Yeah, the hotel motel things, in the conversion of hotels and motels to affordable housing may. Not sure that I have a very. As clear a suggestion as I had hoped. Because this section is like things that municipalities cannot.
Limited was the things that municipalities have a limited list of criteria which they can regulate.
Location size type of. City actually. Okay, here's my concern. By including hotels and motels in this, I've heard of places where. So we wanted to convert a motel into affordable housing, great. And the municipality was like on board with that, but because they were able to regulate it, and I believe it was something to do with. It's not on this list, they were able to say, you need to meet minimum housing standards, so therefore you need to put in kitchens. Into these facilities, and I. Frankly, I think
This was
that's,
a fair one. Probably.
no, I just a different one, apparently there's another one. So I guess
The
my,
nursing home is what
That
I'm
was a new-
thinking.
Yeah.
yeah, this one was very actually. So it was actually a really good thing, because we don't want, I mean, people even that are almost deserve to have. Housing that meets minimum housing standards, and that includes having a kitchen. So I'm worried about having it on this list for that purpose. If we could say that you can't prohibit this, but it must be a conditional, this type of conversion is conditional, in general, or can include minimum housing standards in that list. I don't know how to fix that problem.
Can I make a broad suggestion? Can we go topic by topic? I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. I wanted to at least
We
raise
can,
it.
but can we just hit 3 topics in a row without making any decisions, and I wanna just keep you on task. Thank you.
Okay, so tandem was allowed.
You wanna change it to a may, or do you wanna strike it? It's the same result either way, I said.
I would say strike.
If we are gonna do it, I would like to strike. I mean, personally, I'd like to strike all of section 53, but I don't think that's gonna happen today. So I would like to strike B. And then I would also like to make,
Strike.
Tandem parking, would you like to strike subsection B on page 98?
Yes, strike is the cleanest way to pass people from this system.
Great.
Oh, no, you're fine. And then in C. It says, I mean, that municipality shall define. I would like to change that to a may.
I need more talking about this before I can agree.
And if we're putting that one out there, I'd also want that for D. To make it a may.
Let's step by step here, so to remind you, currently in statute, municipalities have broad authority under zoning. Including what they want, how they want to regulate parking. The only other provisions in statute right now are the limited number of spaces that you have in the next section, but otherwise they currently have broad authority, so you can change it to a may. That is what is basically under the statute right now, is that they may set sizes, I think many of them do, but. So that's just some context,
As opposed to prescribing what the,
right, and this bill currently sets a not larger than. 9 by 18 feet for the size of parking spaces.
anyone, so you would like. To not include that specification. Here, Ronson, do you have,
I need more conversation about it before we do to strike it, but.
leave it as is, keep it on your list. As the parking lot size, the parking place size. The third one in that same section on parking was what, please?
D, and that is the existing non-conforming parking. And that's saying the municipality shall allow an existing non-conforming parking space to count towards the parking requirement of an existing residential building. New residential units are added to the building. And if I'm understanding correctly, that means if before there was a non-conforming parking space that counted, they would still have to count it if they added units.
Yes.
And my concern with that is you may have let a building have a non-conforming parking space, they add 2 units and they're counting this weird angled parking space, getting tandem parking. And having smaller sizes. Suddenly you're trying to fit many more cars in the same area. With additional people. And I think that could put pressure on a municipal lot, it could also put pressure on surrounding residential properties. It could put people in situations where they're parking on their lawn. Or in the street. Which feels like something a municipality should have the ability to consider. Not an automatic no, obviously, it's a conversation, it's a permit process, but to at least have the, remain to have the authority to review that.
Madam former mayor,
I need to cheat on it, sorry.
okay, so we made one change, we'll leave the other 2 with question mark
Okay.
voting.
Okay.
Alright. Back to, now we have language from the MRB.
So can I just touch on Senator Watson's other point about, I'm happy to talk more about that with you, because I haven't heard what you were talking about with the hotel motel big situation, so like, I don't have any thoughts. On how to address that, because I haven't heard that before, so if you want to talk about it.
Sure.
Let me know.
What if I see if I can track down some language that might address it and see if I can dig that up today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow's pretty much
The
our
deadline.
deadline.
So I'll try to get it today, if I can. And if I can't,
There's always be here.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure I'm finding the right page. It's the lines on page 97, 16 and 17. Hotels and motels converted to permanently affordable housing developments. You want to make sure that somehow notion of what is a housing unit includes a working unit.
right,
And it may already be folded into permanently affordable housing. A definition somewhere, but want to make sure that that's not, I just saying something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good. Right, so we passed over ADUs because, the NRB had some language for us, now we all have copies of that language. And Mr. Gill or Ms. Haskell, do you want to say something about what's here and the thinking behind it?
Well, we had a number of, well, it started with the fact that some of the homes that wanted to add ADUs were part of the subdivision, so they have a permit.
Mhm.
And then adding an ADU became a material change and needed an amendment.
Yeah.
And then in some cases it didn't, so we were hoping that they could be exempt whether or not the house had a permit or not under the circumstances, and I'll let Pete get to that.
Okay.
Yes, this language, changes here would, essentially the idea was to. Clarify what I think was the intent here of this, PB. And just extend that out, to 29 to align with the other, dates, but. You guys are all having conversations about that, so I'll leave that there for now. And then, there's a reference to title 24, 4303 and 4412.
Can you remind us while we're
And that's the definitions of ADUs in the municipal section is title 24. And, we thought it would be best to include those as a section within Act 250, have a definition within Act 250 to provide that clarity. Because when you look at those sections, I can see that it would be challenging for someone to consistently apply those definitions. And so we wanted to make sure that it was clear within the Act 250 statute itself. And so that's that second piece of language that's offered on that sheet. It's an attempt to combine distinctly those two provisions of ADU definition language in Title 24 into one definition for ADUs.
Okay, and you wanna let's walk through, so there's the features, distinct unit clearly subordinate to a single family owner occupied dwelling, has facilities and provisions for independent living. This sounds like a little bit like what you were just talking about. Including sleeping, food preparation, and sanitation, provided there's compliance with all of the following. So sufficient wastewater, is that not assessed currently as part?
This is almost entirely the definition from Title 24.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, we're not trying to change that language per se, we're just trying to put one, get it into Act 250, so it's there within that same title. And so that it's all in one place instead of two statutory provisions in Title 24 that would be referencing. It's connected.
Just so I know, you don't see this word very often, or appurtenant to. Nearby, I mean, probably wouldn't say nearby, same property, close to.
I had to pause on that too.
I know it's there for a reason, but I'm not sure exactly. I don't see. How, so I have seen this question come up. Can an ADU be within another structure? Can you build a garage? And so you have the garage, and then you have the ADU above, so that might.
That's the pertinent to, yeah. So I'll just point out that this is mostly the definition of accessory dwelling unit. So the issue that I had raised, this doesn't address the issue I had raised, which was how many accessory dwelling units per parcel? So that is something for you to consider, because it doesn't reference the one per single family.
I should note, sorry, I should note here too, we did put in there, new construction at the end of C there. That language, just to include that, part of it.
So as you're building your house, you could build the ADU.
You're gonna go with the ADUs, but let's start.
Do you have any, just, maybe thoughts for the committee to share about moving those into the activity section?
Well, so I don't know that it addresses your concern.
No, but I mean, in terms of the definition, we said it's almost identical to the municipal version. And I was gonna ask you, what's the difference?
It's the two things I think we just talked about, so. In 4412, there's the reference to one per single family, and then the reference to new construction, I think is not there. But I have to look again, but just off the top of my head, otherwise it's mostly the same.
Okay, so when you say one, you're saying, this is, I wanna make sure I'm following what you're saying. This doesn't specify, would this be interpreted to allow for more than one ADU?
Exempt, yeah.
To be exempt. is that, and so other than the issue where we're talking about like where 9 becomes 18 actually. Does that have any bearing on? I've just never, this is the first time I've ever thought about a single dwelling having more than one ADU associated with it. I've never heard anyone mention that as a possibility.
So I think Burlington is already allowing 2 ADUs per property.
Oh, I didn't. Right. Okay, so there's no, and if we were to pass this, if the municipality wanted to control, they would specify in their own municipal bylaws that for instance, a single dwelling, maybe a single ADU or up to 2. But we're really just creating a definition in Act 15. So we have a shared definition across areas, right? So any thoughts on adding in signage? Fine. Okay, so let's use this language, but it leaves open the question that we did get to is, at what point do at what point does an ADU, does a construction of an ADU have the capacity to require either a permit amendment or trigger Act 250? Two different things. You were at 9. One of the 9 houses in the project as an ADU, now that project becomes 10. So it could be called 10 unit project. Does it trigger Act 250?
I think the answer is no.
Well, the whole idea is facilitate, so. I'm. Let's go with you.
Yeah, I think the answer is no.
No.
Because it's an accessory dwelling unit, it's not a traditional unit.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we,
That is how I interpret it, but I don't know if.
sure, and then the consequence could be that the 9 become 9 homes and 9 ADUs at night.
Or even more in Burlington,
Right.
27 in Burlington.
Oh, wow.
And they could each be up to 900 square feet.
The original 9 plus 18 ADUs. It feels like a, is the bill as constructed silent on this?
Yes.
Okay,
I feel like, if I may.
yes,
I
please.
feel like this is a big question.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're gonna solve it right now. And I would like to flag it for a future time, because it's worth figuring out, but because I think there's some multipliers here, like. You could end up with
And you're exempting.
yeah, gigantic exemptions and that it just, I think I don't, on the one hand, we need more housing, on the other hand, theoretically, it doesn't make much sense.
No.
You
You could just build an Airbnb with every home you build.
could go multiple,
You could put, you know.
yeah, and anyway, feels like a big enough.
Yeah, it's not a casual decision, yeah.
When does this committee stop its work? No, I mean today, on
On the calendar, we have to next Friday.
next.
Right, 16 left,
The shot clock,
the shot clock,
then 6 to
that's
6.
it. I do this week for next, yeah.
I do have some suggestions.
Let you all lobby for next meeting.
I'm all for more meetings, honestly, I just keep going.
Always.
I know, popular opinion.
Ms. Dimitri.
Thank you. I would, if I may, like to weigh in on the question of whether accessory dwelling units should count toward the Act 250 dwelling unit threshold. My argument would be no. And there are several reasons for that. One main reason is that accessory dwelling units are owner occupied. So there is a layer of protection from a neighborhood impact perspective. Because the owner, that they're attached to owner occupied dwellings. And that would be an important thing. They are,
Question on that, can I say I have a house, I build an ADU? And then I'm just trying to think of. That owner need not stay.
Right.
Right.
The next owner would, the next owner of the property, in order to still consider that an accessory dwelling unit, would still need to live in either the accessory unit or the dwelling.
So that owner can't sell to someone who then says, I'm gonna rent the whole place.
Exactly, they would need to get a different permit for a duplex.
Okay, and our municipalities. So Burlington must be permitting this already, so. We're straightening on the definition, but. I don't remember now, because we've been talking about too many things at the moment. Does, the bill as we voted it out exempt, ADUs from municipal regulation?
They're not exempt, but they have to be allowed. So that's existing law, that's been existing law for a very long time. Yeah, and so it has been existing law for a very long time. They're not easy to build. So I think the fear that 9 could become 27, well, I understand that, it's not. It's not likely because they are very difficult to build. They're very expensive. There's septic and water. If you're outside of a sewer and water, there's septic limitations that often are prohibitive. I mean, there's a lot of fire safety rules. They're not easy.
Mr. Kowski?
I'm thinking legally in terms of the context with the new construction, especially under this new definition. Of someone making a legal argument. Not adding after the house has already existed for a long time.
Sorry, I didn't follow. So what was the
New. Adding 2 accessory dwelling units to an existing property may be technically difficult. But if you're doing new
new
construction,
construction?
that was the concern I was raising.
So we're. Gonna hold off, at the moment, the bill's silent on whether or not. We trigger jurisdictions for the addition of ADUs, but I think, Yeah, and I sense in the committee an interest in facilitating the development of ADUs, also sense a certain hesitation about taking all the implications all the way through on the fly. So, how about we do the new definition, and then we leave that, how do we do the trigger provisions to an ongoing conversation? And that be the list of those. Yes. Mine's buried. Okay, and on that list, although we have NRCB information, I'm guessing that's not the highest priority thing left.
I think that's true. I wanna honor that we haven't gotten to Senator McCormick's amicus brief. Piece, though I don't know if there's anything. Else rising to the top here. Oh, but for what it's worth, I do have some language to suggest around the hotel motel,
Oh, that's.
Okay, great.
but we can do that after.
And we did resolve the utilities piece.
Yes,
We did,
We did resolve that.
okay,
We did resolve, I believe, Secretary Moore's item.
yeah, so I have, well, I have such a stack of pieces of paper from people making suggestions. And in that stack is the secretary for me, so let me put on my to-do list to get copies, hard copies for everyone to look at. I think it's a pretty comes across as a single sentence, but sometimes a single sentence is bigger than it looks, so I will get hard copies. I think you were going to.
Mr. Chair, I would just note that, I feel very comfortable if you have technical or non-policy changing corrections that you've heard from folks to have you include those in the bill. It sounds like that's what the recommendation from the Secretary of A&R would be. I'm open to you working separate from the committee on those pieces
And just
to
try to line them up.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
for another draft.
We need to say yes and no.
Yeah.
And I also asked for a list of who at A&R we should contact, chase down. There's like 3 different threads. One of them was the environmental justice language, which I think it gets squared away on. Another is the sort of technical edit as Secretary Moore characterized it. And so I'll make sure I get those 2, and I'm gonna go through my stack and call things out. Put together for everyone. And I'll make sure we have hard copies, but at this point, having things in front of us is useful for saying yes and no. Anything else on our list?
As far as the title goes.
Yeah.
Can I suggest, the Land Use Planning Act? Or just the loop. I just have the title right now. We gotta call it something.
I
Does it?
hardly adore
Oh,
this.
what is?
Wait.
Biodiversity and community resilience to land use. It doesn't,
I wanted,
still don't have an acronym, but
you know, I feel like, I need something more generic. Because it's about housing and it's about land use.
Right, I had a much longer version of that, like the Land Use Planning Development Housing Act. The word housing should appear somewhere in the middle of all of them. Anyway, so
If you have a different suggestion, I'm open.
Well,
I just.
let's write it down and get them in the same place, same time.
For what years out there?
Sarah McDonald pie is the name for it. It's all me. And the company's great. Okay, yes, please.
Sorry, there's one of we have 10 minutes. Probably have enough time to it's not a requirement to meet this brief. The only other thing that, well, there may be a couple of things that are rising up for me. One, so there's this piece on pages 58 and 59, which is the interim exemptions. And I just want to flag if we were gonna change that, I can't remember what. I had some thoughts about if we were gonna change them, what we would change them to, but. I just want to say that like that part's important, so if it's on our list, like should probably talk about it. So number 18, it's 80, I'm sorry, 58 and 59. Transit corridors. Transit corridors.
or threats, or
Yes,
whatever they.
Because I am interested in thinking about lowering that threshold.
Yeah.
For the transit corridors, I guess, I mean,
Maybe we should define what transit corridors, transit routes are.
Yes. So I have a handout. So this is bigger packet for you, just
You should define it, sorry.
than just the transit piece, because I pulled together a bunch of maps from different emails. But if you want to look at transit corridors, the place to go is pretty much right in the middle.
Oh, there's another one, do you want?
And look,
I don't, thank you, guys.
right in the middle.
And Ms. Demetra, can you talk to us a little bit about it? So that this is one of the late additions and we had some back and forth over the weekend, and just so many knows, my question was, as first described, it was addressing Route 7 south, but then when I asked more generally what the definition of an urbanized or urban area was, and what a transit corridor was, what would, if we were to adopt this, what were we actually, what's entailed? And you have that,
This one?
there's the one that should be right based on that. So can you interpret that map for us? I mean, is it basically all all the green pathways are areas in which there would be no activity permit required. And that's the full extent of how they apply to this urbanized or urban area as defined by federal statutes. Right?
Yes.
And there are something like 20 urban areas in Vermont, or 15, but this is the only one that exceeds 50,000 person threshold. Okay, so, you want to say a little something about, why the RPC basically said, hey, this is something we've been meaning to work on, and we think this is a good idea to address now. So, can you educate us on that?
Yeah, so this proposal came out of a recognition that, for better or worse, depending on your perspective, Chittenden County is different than the rest of Vermont. And when you look at the definition of interim exemptions, because they're tied to the designation areas, which are very small, plus a small buffer, you actually leave out most of the already developed urban areas of Chittenden County in that interim exemption, places where there's transit, where there's sidewalks, where there's already development, where there's water, where there's sewer, all the places that we want to encourage housing and new housing to be. So because of the uniqueness of how Chittenden County is developed, because it's such an urban area, this proposal was drafted to try to come up with a different geography that these interim exemptions could apply to. And transit was one proxy that was used as an attempt to pull in greater geographic areas of Chittenden County into the interim exemptions in places that make sense. Because transit routes tend to follow the most developed, densest places anyway, it seemed like a good proxy.
Okay. The other thing. Okay, any questions about it? The other thing I wanted to juxtapose that with is the map on the top, which is yours truly taking a screenshot from the housing and community development website of Burlington. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy. And then the highlighted areas, like the blue is I think he's not on here, remember now, neighborhood development areas or anyway,
If there's a. Well.
actually on one of the other maps, you can see the colors scheme. Blue, I think it's NDAs, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
They're underneath. So when you put all the designated areas that we put in the bills, we voted it out. And then you draw in the half mile boundaries.
That's pretty big.
You pretty well fill in, Burlington. Burlington, Winooski is the blue V up at the top. I think the blue area down below is South Burlington. The blue out to the right is Essex Junction. And it may be that between allowing housing in all those expanded designated areas, it might pretty well align with the transit map. All of which is to say, if this seems like maybe a worrisome or alarming expansion, which was my first reaction, then when I juxtaposed it with what we proposed for housing, they overlay significantly.
So,
So if we with the designated, expanded designated area construct, the transit lines lay into it for the most part. So that gave me some comfort that we weren't adding like a whole new flavor of activity functions. I think the first time other than 2,500 feet above triggering, there's been no other trigger that wasn't related to the nature of the development itself. This is a land-based trigger. And
Chris, do you have any, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how this would work out in the less developed parts of the state?
well, so that's where there's, at the moment, as proposed, there's 50,000, you must have 50,000 or more people in that metropolitan district or urbanized area in order to have this apply.
Yeah.
So I think the question it begs though is at some point, will someone say that should be 25 and then 10 and then 5, and so I would just. Although this one makes sense to me, if we're gonna go ahead with it, I think we just wanna go in eyes wide open saying, yeah, will Brattleboro say, how about the Putney Road North? Western Avenue, would not, and you know, it could be that this will play out in many places. Catherine, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think in regards to that, this is related to an interim exemption. So if this was a permanent exemption, then I could see over time those requests, but because this is an interim exemption, it's just, it's a patch to fill in those empty places that make sense between the designation areas that's temporary in nature and will go away once the regional plan.
Okay. You know, I failed to recognize that it was interim, I was just thinking that it's up for evidence.
And I think in terms of the other municipalities, it doesn't really apply to the urban areas that are defined as greater than 50,000 people. The requirement that you added that they be in the same municipality for the buffer, I think could be problematic for municipalities outside of Chenault County. That don't have this, this transit
Right.
corridor addition, so I think that's something we're looking at in the next section.
Sure, thank you. I mean, I think one thing we had said about that was. We didn't want to be dragoning a neighboring town. It's like, wait, we didn't sign up for this, but now your boundary extends into our town. So there was. We just ended up saying it has to be contained. I suppose another version that could be with the permission of the second municipality. That they could, they might want to take advantage of it, they could opt in or something like that.
Change their
Right. The other thing that, as I was doing this map stuff, was to see that when you draw a boundary, because the designated areas follow parcel lines, you know what's in and what's out. Now you start drawing boundaries and they slice through parcels. A little bit or a lot of it. So Bristol, the line around Bristol cuts through a corner, very tiny corner of a 2,160 acre parcel. That extends all the way up to Starksboro and the A. Johnson. And so it moved past the straight face test that say, oh, that if your parcel touches the boundary. But then it opens the question, well, how much of your parcel would need to be in before it makes sense? 30 your parcels in, are you, so I just wanted to put that. We're creating a new question for ourselves by drawing boundary lines and using boundaries to create exemption. Caroline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very interesting discussion, and I don't necessarily have a strong understanding of what a decision we would make on this would do in either direction. It is also 12, and I have agreed to chair the Climate Solutions Caucus that starts at lunch.
Yeah.
So would we be able to end committee at a reasonable?
Yeah, like now.
Okay.
Before we go, I did want to flip over the back side of that page. 2, whatever. There's the Burlington one, the hand-drawn Burlington one, but I think it's pretty accurate. I used the scale, blah, blah, blah. So this is St. J on the back side. And so when people are thinking about, well, are we making I would say one of the concerns we heard the loudest and strongest about the supportive housing last year was that the designated areas were something with 0.3% of Vermont. Therefore, there was not much space to then develop. And My take when I submit is that, it's a little awkward to do the math on irregular shapes, but. It's a very significant expansion of the opportunity to develop housing. It's adjacent to areas where we've said we want dense development, but it's definitely bigger than. It's not to be too hometown centric. Bristol Village goes from being a block right next to the green and the green to the entire village, almost the entire village is become the area. That would be, exemplary. So, for some people, they probably would cheer, and other people might express concern. So just getting that into our conversation, there's other maps, I actually did them for everyone's, hometown on the committee, so somewhere in there you'll find, Hartford and,
Harvard's in here
Hartford's in
as a photo?
a map photo.
Oh, yeah, it's way back, right?
Right, here's Montpelier.
Oh, great. That's 89 and then, oh, that's the sun's.
It's a different looking field for where things are plotted. So thank you everyone for sticking around. I'm gonna work. I will check in with any committee member who wants to put anything on our list. I'm hoping we will have a little packet like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we'll have hard copies of anything that we're trying to say, yay, tomorrow. And then we'll fold those things into our committee report, but we wrote it out on 17th.
Well, just now.
Yes.
I did just send Ellen some language about the hotel motel, I think it was.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of all of them, we get outside for at least a few minutes today. See you.